folks, let me tell you something. There is a man sitting in Switzerland right now, the Vice President of the United States, who just walked out of 9 hours of negotiations with the Iranians. It's 9 hours. And what does he come out with? International nuclear inspectors back inside Iran for the first time in who knows how long. Now, the Iranians, bless their hearts, they came right back out and said, that's not what happened. They've got their own story. Their state media is running around telling anybody who will listen that Vance got snubbed, that nothing was agreed to, that America blinked. Sure they are. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of when your little brother loses at a board game and flips the table and says the rules were wrong. That's the Iranian government right now, my friends. Flipping the table. I'm Rick LeBow. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. All right, my friends, let's get into this. Because I have been watching the drive-by media cover these Iran talks, and I want to walk you through what's actually happening here versus what they want you to think is happening. The story goes like this. Vice President J.D. Vance, and look, I'll be honest, when they first floated the idea of Vance going to Switzerland to talk to the Iranians, I had some, let's call it, healthy skepticism. This is not a man who has been conducting foreign policy his entire life. But you know what? Sometimes fresh eyes are exactly what you need. Sometimes the career diplomat crowd, the people who've been managing these relationships for 30 years, sometimes they are the problem. And J.D. Vance walks in there, sits down for 9 hours, and walks out with something real. International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors. Back into Iran. That is not nothing, folks. That is not nothing. Now, you have to understand what this means. The whole point of the nuclear deal, any nuclear deal going back decades, is verification. You can make all the promises you want. Iran has been promising things since the Carter administration. The promise is worth approximately the paper it's printed on. What matters is eyes on the ground, inspectors, people who can actually go in and look and say, yes, they are doing what they said, or no, they are lying again. And the answer, by the way, has historically been they are lying again. Every time, without fail. So getting inspectors back in, if it holds, is significant. The Trump administration is calling it a, quote, foundation for what could be a truly transformative agreement. And that's the right way to frame it. Not we fixed everything, not peace in our time. That's been said before, and it didn't age well. But a foundation, a first step, something to build on. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because immediately, and I mean immediately, the Iranian side comes out and starts pushing their own version of events. Their state media says there was no agreement. Their government says Vance was snubbed. One of their officials claimed the whole thing was a waste of time. And you know what our officials said? They said that's foreign propaganda. Now, who do you believe? Who are you going to believe here, folks? The regime that has been lying to the world about its nuclear program for 30 years? The same regime that said they weren't enriching uranium right up until we caught them enriching uranium? That regime? Or the United States government? I know. Some of you are rolling your eyes right now saying, Rick, The U.S. government lies, too. And I'll grant you that. Our government has not been a model of transparency throughout history. But there is a difference, a meaningful difference between a government that sometimes deceives and a government whose entire foreign policy is built on deception. The mullahs have been running a scam on the Western world for generations. Look at the broader picture here. The Strait of Hormuz, which is about the width of a hallway, relatively speaking, in terms of global oil shipping, has been the Iranian ace card for decades. They sit there and they say, you push us, we close the strait, oil prices go to the moon, your economy crumbles. That's their leverage. That's always been their leverage. What the Trump administration has been doing, what you don't hear about in the drive-by media because it doesn't fit the narrative of Trump as some blundering cowboy, is a patient, methodical campaign to strip that leverage away. Military pressure, economic pressure, diplomatic pressure through channels like this Vance meeting, and yes, the Hormuz thing is complicated. There are legal questions, there are strategic questions, but the point is, we are not being passive. We are not sending pallets of cash in the middle of the night. We are not writing the Iranians a love letter and hoping they change. And then you've got the drive-by media absolutely beside themselves because they can't figure out how to cover this. On one hand, they want to say Trump is starting wars. On the other hand, here's his vice president achieving what looks like a diplomatic breakthrough. They can't decide which attack to run with, so they do what they always do. They platform the Iranian government's version of events and call it reporting both sides. Reporting both sides. My friends, there are not two sides when one side is the Islamic Republic of Iran and their propaganda apparatus. There's the truth, and then there's what Tehran wants you to believe. That's not two sides. That's one side and a lie. Now, I want to talk for a minute about J.D. Vance specifically, because this is a man the media has been absolutely savage about from the moment Trump picked him. Remember the stuff they said? Remember the mockery? They went after his book, they went after his family, they went after things he said in college that he himself has walked back and explained. They have treated this man like he is the dumbest person who ever set foot in Washington. And now he's in Switzerland conducting foreign policy, and the early read is that he did a solid job. Of course, the same media is now running with the Iranian line that he got snubbed because they cannot, psychologically, they literally cannot allow themselves to give this administration credit for anything. It would break something inside them. There's also a book situation. Vance apparently wrote something about his faith, about his journey to Catholicism, his spiritual life, all of that. And the media reviews have been something to behold. Tedious, not theologically rigorous. These are the same people who gave glowing reviews to every memoir Barack Obama ever produced, including the one about himself, and the other one about himself, and I believe the third one was also largely about himself. A man writes honestly about finding his faith, and they treat it like he submitted a doctoral dissertation to a panel of hostile professors. It's remarkable. It really is. But back to Iran, because that's the big one today. The Trump administration's position is clear. This is progress, this is real, and anyone telling you otherwise is carrying water for a regime that wants to build nuclear weapons. I think that's right. I think the skepticism about Iran is not only warranted, it is required by history. The Obama deal, the JCPOA, the thing the left treated like the second coming of international diplomacy, gave Iran sanctions relief, gave them the ability to run out the clock, and gave them a pathway to a nuclear weapon at the end of the agreement anyway. It didn't stop them permanently. It gave them a vacation with a paid return ticket. Trump pulled out of that deal his first term, and the world did not end, despite what John Kerry told us would happen. Jean-Francois Kerry, always eager to go find a Frenchman to surrender to. The world did not end. In fact, Iran ended up at the negotiating table. Pressure works with these people. Good faith gestures do not. So where does this go from here? Honestly, I don't know, and I won't pretend I do. Iran is Iran. They have been playing this game since 1979. The mullahs are not about to transform themselves into reasonable actors because of one meeting in Switzerland. But you have to start somewhere. And inspectors back in the country is a start. Don't doubt me on this one. If the inspectors get in, and if they find what most people suspect they'll find, this whole situation changes fast. Because then you have hard evidence, not suspicion, not intelligence assessments, not we believe, actual documented evidence that Iran has been lying. And then the diplomatic picture looks very different. The administration is right to call this a milestone while also keeping the pressure on. That's the correct posture. And J.D. Vance, who the media was laughing at not so long ago, is the one who got it done. Don't doubt the administration on this one. Not yet. All right, folks, we've got a few more things to get through, so let me move fast here. First up, Tucker Carlson. Chatsworth Osborne Jr. has announced that he will no longer support the Republican Party. Says, and I'm quoting here, "There's no chance I would support the Republican Party going into the midterms." His reason? The party puts, quote, "the interests of a foreign country above those of its own citizens." Now, I've got complicated feelings about this one. On one hand, Tucker has been raising questions about foreign policy, specifically about how much we're involved overseas and who benefits from that involvement. And those are not crazy questions. A lot of Americans have those questions. I have those questions sometimes. Skepticism about our foreign entanglements is as old as the Republic. On the other hand, you don't quit. You don't walk off the field. The Republican Party is not perfect. Lord knows I have spent considerable broadcast hours cataloging its imperfections. But the alternative is the Democrat Party, which at this moment is running a socialist mayor of New York City named Zohran Mamdani as one of its standard bearers. A man who makes Bernie Sanders look like Calvin Coolidge. Tucker, my friend, I understand the frustration. I lived through years of Republicans who talked tough and governed timid. I understand wanting to throw the whole thing out, but walking away from the party right before midterms and handing ammunition to the drive-bys, that's not a principled stand. That's a tantrum. And tantrums, while occasionally satisfying, do not elect better Republicans. Stay in the fight, Chatsworth. Next, and this one is something else, the Los Angeles Unified School District superintendent has resigned following a federal investigation. 4 months of investigation. He's out. Now, this is the second largest school district in the country, folks. We're talking about over 400,000 kids. And the man running the whole operation is out the door after a federal investigation. What was the investigation about? The details are still coming out, but I'll tell you what I know. This is a school district that has been a monument to progressive education theory for years. test scores that would make you weep, graduation rates that would make you weep harder, billions of dollars flowing through the system every year, and the kids, especially the poor kids, the kids who have no other option, are getting an education that prepares them for absolutely nothing. And yet the school board, the teachers' union, the entire apparatus of progressive education in Los Angeles has spent the last decade and a half telling us that what they needed was more money, more programs, more administrators, more everything, except accountability. A federal investigation leading to the superintendent's resignation is accountability. That's what accountability looks like when the normal systems have been so thoroughly captured by the left that they can't produce it themselves. The kids of Los Angeles deserve better, full stop. And the people who have been running that system into the ground while collecting their salaries and pensions and patting each other on the back at conferences, those people have a lot to answer for. And finally, real quick, because this one made me smile, an Iowa news anchor used his final broadcast to tell the truth about what's wrong with the news business. Said journalism has become sanitized. Said the real stories aren't getting told. Said the industry pressures reporters to smooth everything over and keep everybody comfortable. Folks, I've been saying this since before some of your kids were born. The drive-by media doesn't tell you what's happening. They tell you a version of what's happening that has been focus grouped, lawyered, scrubbed, and carefully shaped to not offend the people who advertise on their stations and not upset the political sensibilities of their producers. This man walked out the door with his integrity intact. That's more than most of his colleagues will be able to say. Good for him. He's welcome on the Excellence in Podcasting Network anytime. All right, my friends, we're coming up on the end of today's program. Let me leave you with this. We live in a time when the people who are supposed to explain the world to you, the media, the institutions, the experts, have made a business out of confusion. They benefit when you don't know what to think. They benefit when you feel like every story has 17 sides and none of them are knowable, and the whole thing is just too complicated for regular people to understand. It's not that complicated. Iran is trying to build a nuclear weapon. The Trump administration is trying to stop them without getting into a war. A vice president went and negotiated for 9 hours and got something real. The Iranian government is lying about it because that's what they do. And the American media is amplifying the Iranian government's lies because it makes the administration look bad. You don't need a PhD. You don't need a think tank. You need common sense, which I would argue is the single most suppressed commodity in America today. The American people have it. They've always had it. Every time the elites decide that the voters are too dumb to be trusted, the voters go ahead and do something that makes the elites stay up all night rethinking their careers. Hold on to your common sense, folks. It's the most valuable thing you've got. I'm Rick LeBow. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow if they let us back on.